Welcome to all the participants to the fifth day of the AICT sponsored training program on AI powered solutions for healthcare innovations. We are privileged to have our invited speaker for today, Mr. Shelton Maharesh Sundar Singh sir. So welcome to this session, sir.
Hi, ma'am. Welcome. Thanks for the.
Let me introduce the speaker to the participants. Sir is working as a manager, data analytics at Verizon Data Sciences Private Limited, Chennai. Sir is also an AI ML mentor at the Great Lakes Institute of Management. Sir has more than 10 years of IT experience. Sir has completed his Masters of Technology with BITS Pilani and MBA in Project Management from Sikkim Manipal University. So, on behalf of the management of KCG College of Technology and the entire coordinator team, I extend my hearty welcome to Mr. Shelton, sir, to this afternoon session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deepa Jose, ma'am, and thank you to the management of KCG for doing a wonderful job in conducting sessions like this. And a belated Christmas wishes to everyone on board, and wishing you all an advanced New Year wishes. So, without further delay, I think let me get started. I see close to 40 participants here. What I'm going to do is I just wanted to make sure this session goes a little more interactive. So I'm just going to show my cam for some time, and I'm going to cut it down to make it a little more interactive. We are going to have little of tool usage. So what I'll do is I'm going to put something on the screen right now. Let me share my screen. Okay.
All the participants are requested to mute their audio.
Okay. So what we are going to do is I'm going to put a link to you all. Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible. Sir, have you
I think
posted
there
the
is
link
some
in the
sort of this.
chat box?
No. Let me reconnect, ma'am. I think there is some internet problem here. Just give me a second, please.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Okay. So, do you see a link there at the top? It's www.menti.com. So you can just log into www.menti.com, and you're going to use the code 969712. So that would be the code that you are going to use.
So
So
may I interrupt you?
participants there,
So
yep.
have you shared the screen or have because we are not able to view the screen?
Okay, let me share it again. You're able to
Yes, sir.
see now, ma'am?
Yes, now it is visible.
Yeah. So log on to www.menti.com from your mobile phones or from your desktop or whatever, and the code joining code is 969717. Okay, and you will be seeing the first question. So I just wanted to start with expectation today. So the first question to you guys over the board is, how much experience do you have in machine learning? So just wanted to understand the wavelength so that we can go in depth accordingly. So you can give submit so that we can see the poll results coming live here. So log into www.menti.com. Okay, I see one response, two, and give the passcode 969712. So we have 38 people, so let's wait at least for 15 people to respond here. And for the sake of the group, let me put it in the chat as well. Okay. Okay. I see 8 people have responded. Let's give just one more minute. Okay, 9 people so far. And for people who are joined right now, let me repeat, log into www.menti.com and give your passcode as 969712 and you can start answering question number 1. Let's wait for 15 responses and then we'll move on to the next question. Okay, 13 responses, and I think it's a fair number. So we see that predominantly most of them are beginning to explore, and we have few people marking it as proficient. Good to go. The next question that I have is this one. So let me move on to the next question. Okay, so you would just in 3 words answer what is your expectation for today. Okay, so this is the next question. So we finished off the previous question. So the next question that I wanted to understand from the audience is what is your expectation from today's session? You will get 3 suggestions there. You can give 1 word answers, 3 1 word.
Sir, is it possible to share the link once again? Now the participants have increased. It's almost 52.
Join now.
Yes, sir. Now it is 51 actually.
Yeah,
Can
it's www.menti.com and the user code is 969717. You see it on the top of my slide. Okay, I see 2 people giving a response. Okay. Dr. Deepam, are you able to access? Are you good?
Yes, sir. I was asking for the participants who joined late, sir.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Sir, tell us once the login code, sir, in mentis.com. Excuse me.
Yeah. 969712.
9697.
969712.
Yes, sir,
12.
sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we see your answers coming in. So I just wanted to see a lot of your answers so that we can directionalize our session in what you really want. So rather than to give my okay, let's wait for another 5 more response and then okay. I see machine learning at the top and regression at the second. So I think we are relatedly connected. Good to see AlexNet VGG19 mentioned. I think we have proficient people here as well. Okay, last 15th response. With that, I'm just going to close this and move on with today's session. Okay, so more hands-on. So the topic words that we see here is healthcare, machine learning, regression, and a few other words that we find apart from that is application of ML, hands-on, apply ML algorithms related to that. Okay, thank you so much for giving away your answers. So I understand this group is basically a mix of both people who know ML as well as people who have started with ML. And we see predominantly people are focused towards to know more about in depth about the machine learning thing. Thank you so much. Okay, so with this, we'll just close the first two introductory question, and I'm just gonna move with today's session. And I would be sharing this material with Dr. Deepa post this session. Okay, and thank you so much in all languages for joining today's session. And just to give a quick introduction, as Deepa mentioned, myself Shelton, and I work in the IT sector. And basically, I have submitted my research papers in Yahoo for the past 3 consecutive years. And I also mentor at the Great Lakes. And this currently, I'm working with the telecom industry as a data science manager. I lead a team of data scientists and data analysts. Earlier, I have exposure with other companies, including Deloitte and Cognizant, working in various forums like pharma, insurance, healthcare, and licenses. That's pretty much about me. And you can catch me at LinkedIn at Shelton Maharesh. That's my user ID. Okay. So let's start with very basic thoughts, considering the mix of people we have. I just wanted to give a short introduction about AI versus ML versus deep learning. Okay. So you can keep the chats active. I just want to see some responses over the chats. Whenever you have questions, you can keep posting your questions in the chat. Okay. The most confused and the most spoken and the most popular terminologies are these three things: AI versus machine learning versus deep learning. People confuse these terminologies totally. I can say that it is more over communicated, or it is actually contextually not rightly placed, these terminologies usually. So what is AI, what is machine learning, and what is deep learning? So let's understand the terminology difference before we go into today's topic about readmission index and readmission risk. And before that, I just thought I'll just give this introduction so that we become clear about these concepts of AI versus machine learning versus deep learning. AI, when we talk about AI, it is the whole umbrella that anything that is artificially that can be done by a machine becomes artificial intelligence. It could be a simple program, it could be a simple code, it could be a simple hardware that can do things. Anything that is artificially injected or made a machine to be intelligent like is artificial intelligence. Whereas machine learning is a submodule about artificial intelligence. When we talk about artificial intelligence, say for example, your smart home, your Alexa, your robotics, smart driving cars, self-driving cars, and a very new trend is your automatic power systems at your home. Whenever you come into your room, you get your switches lights on, and when you leave the room, it automatically gets switched off. There is nothing to do with machine learning in such switching systems, but it is more about artificial intelligence, right? So where is machine learning comes into picture is machine learning comes into picture when there is something to learn and reproduce the same results again. So then there is a need for data for the machine to learn a lot of things. So a simple example could be a baby that learns a lot of things by itself. Given an instance that uh, when a baby is taught to spell an apple, how to identify an apple or how to differentiate an apple, what parents do is they show the baby the lot of different textures of an apple, sizes of apple, different pictures of apple. So they start inputting a lot of reference data to the machine. Here the example I am talking about is a baby, and automatically the baby starts to learn, and then it tries to next time when it identifies an apple, it will automatically identify and say that, hey, this is an apple and this is a guava, and differentiate those fruits, right? So similar way, when we teach certain things which are called as patterns, the machines can automatically recognize those patterns, and based on the patterns they can identify, classify, or they can give you regression results out of it. So this is your machine learning concept, by the way. And the last one is the deep learning concept, which is a submodule of machine learning. Though it is superlatively used over machine learning these days, deep learning is always a submodule of machine learning. In deep learning, it is an architectural view where it depicts or it tries to mimic the human brain and the human neurons and neuron system, where the memory cells are being utilized for activating certain receptors, and the same concept is tried to be implemented using your computer operating systems. So deep learning is also a submodule of machine learning, which means that even for deep learning there is a need for reference data, or in other technical terms we call it as a training data, where the training data teaches the machine how a pattern looks like, and if a pattern is there, what is the pattern labeled as. So say for example, a person with a person wearing a specs with a beard, and say he does so and so styles, and that person could be Rajinikanth, say for example. And this sort of labeling is constantly fed to the machine, so that the machine learns a lot of patterns. And another pattern, like say, okay, a person with a bald hair and with a strong muscle body and with a tall texture, and that could be rock. Okay, so you give these sort of data to the machine so that the patterns are recognized by your machine, and automatically once the patterns are learned by the machines, the next time the similar data comes in, the machines would be able to differentiate between the labels that we have taught the machine to learn. Okay, and one of the concepts is again your deep learning module. So machine learning as a whole process is being used in a lot of places. Okay, and it is not only restricted to say the IT sector or the production sectors, or it is not only restricted to any digital media or digital sales or sales related informations, but it is widely used in all industries. So today we are going to focus much on the readmission quotient, about patients getting readmitted in a hospital after certain treatments are given, and how machine learning can be used. So before I go there, I just wanted to show you that machine learning is not confined to healthcare. It is not confined to pharma. It is widely used across different portfolios for different items, right? So the left hand side, whatever we see here, right, from image and speech recognition, medical diagnosis, so identification of chronic diseases like cancer and diabetes is now possible through data as well. So those kind of things are possible applications of machine learning, and the techniques are all on the right hand side, right? So basically, when we look into any machine learning algorithm, we have predominantly three different buckets. One is classification. The next one is regression. Another one is uh, we have unsupervised learning as well. Okay, so when we talk about any supervised learning, again, it is into two different buckets. One is your regression based algorithms, and another one is any classification based algorithms, which could be simple labeling problem, identifying the label of the problem. And regression is something that when you try to predict something in numerical quotient, it becomes your regression problem. And unsupervised learning is something where you do not even have any sort of inference about the data, and you want to get some idea about the pattern through that particular data that you have. That becomes your unsupervised learning, and usually classification is done using your unsupervised data, right? And today, machine learning is widely used in various other domains as well, especially in political campaigns, your Netflix recommendations, your YouTube recommendations, facial recognitions, and a lot of other places. So today, even when you log into your Amazon account, Amazon determines what you have to purchase, and how the influence can be done on your purchase pattern is influenced largely by the machine learning algorithms that run at the backend. So I have worked with multiple industries in that area where we use digital data for influencing the customer purchase. We are going to see a little bit about that as well, and then we will move on with the other topics. Okay. So when we talk about any industry, right, the AI part or the data science analytics part is widely broken into three major buckets. One is descriptive analytics, the second one is predictive analytics, and the third one is called as prescriptive analytics. So how does these three things little bit differ? Okay, so let's imagine that a person is suffering from some sort of a disorder, okay, and he is uncomfortable, he is not feeling normal, he goes and visits the doctor. So what happens in the physician's room is this, right? So the first question that the doctor would ask the patient is, what is happening with you, or what's wrong with you, right? And the patient starts to describe the problem that he is facing. So he would say what has happened and how long the problem is, and he would also say from when on he was suffering from this problem, and what are his symptoms, and what did he have, and all these things, right? So these things are all under your descriptive analytics, right? So in a very similar fashion, if you connect back with any of your data analytics stuff, today if I ask a question, can you give some descriptive analytics details about COVID-19? Okay, if that was a question that is asked, the descriptive answer would be that we say that so far in India there had been 1 million plus people who have been impacted with COVID, 30% recovered, and the death quotient is like less than 2%, and still 70% are getting their treatments. All these things are descriptive analytics, where you talk about your past happenings, you talk or describe about your past happenings, and it is all about the past. There is nothing about the future or something, right? So this is the descriptive analytics, and descriptive analytics has been widely used so long for any sort of reporting that we want to make. So the incident has to get completed. Only after the completion of that particular incident, we can be able to explain the description about the analytics. And there are two broader buckets under descriptive analytics. The first one is inferential analytics, and the second one is diagnostic analytics. When we talk about inferential analytics, it's more about getting inference from the data. So when we talk about readmission and healthcare, I'm going to pitch upon these things. So that's the reason I am giving a brief introduction about inferential and diagnostic. So inferential analytics is nothing but what sort of inference do you get from the data that you have? So what is that key insights that you are getting from the data? That is your inferential analytics. And say, for example, with COVID-19, we understand there are a lot of inferential analytics that we can make. We can say that children who are less than 5 years are less like or least likely to get impacted by COVID, whereas people above 6 years plus are more likely to show the symptoms of COVID. So this is an inference that we get, but how do we get that? We need a lot of data, and based on the data, we infer a lot of things. And the second one is diagnostic analytics, where we understand why and how this occurred. Okay, so questions like, why did COVID-19 impact India, or how did COVID-19 enter into India? And if you use data to understand why and when something occurred, that becomes your diagnostic analytics. And there are basically many tools that can be used to understand this: charts, tables, dashboards, Excels, SQL database, simple queries. Everything can be tools that can help us identify the descriptive analytics of a happening. When we talk about predictive analytics, it is the advanced form of your descriptive analytics. So let's go back to the hospital scenario where someone is explaining about the problem to a doctor. They are saying they face this problem. The next thing that the doctor would do is he would understand, hearing the patterns that the patient is explaining to him. He will say, hey, if these are the symptoms, these symptoms may lead to tuberculosis, or these symptoms may lead to cancer, or these symptoms are not curable, something like that, right? So that happening that the doctor is describing is actually not something that has already completed, but he is forecasting the future. So he is telling, if these are all the symptoms, this could happen. So he is giving a prediction about a future based on the past data, which comes through the descriptive analytics. So even in healthcare industry, when we talk about readmission, I'm going to talk about what exactly is readmission, but how likely is a patient to get readmitted in a hospital can be predicted using the descriptive analytics and predictive analytics, where machine learning plays a very vital role. As I said, machine learning and deep learning will play a very vital role in predicting and saying, hey, this may lead to a cancerous stage, or this may lead to, say, a diabetic stage, where the actual event has not happened, but based on the customer's data point or the patient's data points, you would be able to predict what is going to happen in the coming days or whatever it is. So basically, all your Python, all your statistical methods, your neural networks, your ML algorithms, and whatever we spoke about, image classification, could be part of your predictive analytics, where you can use some pattern data to identify certain or you can make your predictions accordingly. Then the last one is the prescriptive analytics. So once the doctor hears about everything that the patient has described and he finds that something could lead to some XYZ disease, he will go ahead and prescribe something back. So he will give a prescription to stop or to achieve a desired outcome. So say, for example, if the patient symptoms may lead to some chronic disease or something, the doctor will prescribe a lot of medicines, right? And he will try to give those medicines and stop that prediction from happening, or he will influence the prediction from happening. So in other terms, in say, for example, in terms of e-commerce business, say, for example, you know that a customer is high likely to purchase a device. So in predictive and prescriptive analytics, what they will do is they will introduce something called as offers to you. They will say, hurry, just 30 minutes left, hurry, 20 minutes left to place an order, and things like that, right? So these are all the prescriptive analytics method that they can use to influence the outcome that is supposed to happen, that you predicted through your predictive analytics. Okay, so this is just a short brief about the descriptive, predictive, and the prescriptive analytics part. And this is very much key, because when we start looking into the readmission part, we will be touching upon how descriptive and predictive analytics influence our results. Okay, so a quick question. So this is this is to understand if everybody in the group understood what is predictive and prescriptive analytics is about. So just look into the graph that is on the left. Okay. Just a moment. Okay. And okay. So I'm just going to hide these answers right now. And you can refer to this graph on the left hand side, the purple and the blue graph. You see some data and the data shows some trend. So it is showing the trend between IT industry and service industry, how they are growing in the GDP. Okay. So how the IT industry is growing and how the service industry is growing, right? So can you give some inference from the graph? What do you understand? What is the inference that you understand from the graph? Can someone put some points in the chat? Okay. So you can post your answers in the chat. Okay. Yes, it is increasing, but what is the inference that you get from this? Okay, the trend is increasing, but comparatively, can we compare this IT versus services trends? Yes, Pramod. Yeah, you are right. They are both increasing simultaneously. That is one inferential analytics that you can give. What else? Okay, Praveen brought a very nice point. There is a high correlation between an IT industry and service industry. That's a wonderful point. Yes. Okay. Any more points? Okay. So let me open up the answers. Yeah. The first point is IT and service growth are both correlated. Yes. The second one is the growth of IT industry is exponential, whereas the growth of the service industry is little linear, right? It's not so exponential. It is like little linear, gradually increasing, right? So what is the diagnostic analytics to do here? Okay. So why IT and service industry are correlated, or why the growth of IT is exponential, what is causing the growth, and all these things are answered by the diagnostic analytics. Okay. So if you could get answers for this, that would be your diagnostic analytics, whereas whatever you have inferred from the data that is given to you, that becomes inferential analytics. Okay. Now the next question is, if you are supposed to invest, say for example, I am giving an option that KCG students can invest either in IT industry or in service industry. Which industry will you invest and why? Okay, Praveen says IT industry. Praveen, can you also say why? Okay, because of the exponential growth. Okay. Okay. Panjavarnam, yes, you're right. Okay, so Pramod says service is needed for a long time. Okay. Okay. So there are basically two inferences that you can get from this graph. One is, people may say that I will invest in service industry because in IT industry because IT industry is exponential. Whereas some people may decide to invest in service industry, like as Pramod said, that is due to some reason that he said that he will invest in a service industry. But there could be another reason as well. Look at the trend, right? In 1994 and 1996, service industry has gone little down, right? It was 8 GDP in 1994, 8 and above, whereas in 1996 it was little below 8, which means that it is little inconsistent at times, right? So people may want to invest in something which is little consistent will go with service industry, and people who may want to do something on a exponential fashion will take, and they are ready to take some risk and all those things will go with this one, right? So think about this, right? You are taking a decision based on what you already know. So that is your predictive analytics, right? So you are predicting that in 2020, my IT industry will grow because so far the trend has been growing. So in the future also it will grow, right? So you are teaching a pattern to your mind. Okay, so that is the key point that I wanted to insist here. In machine learning, we insist this pattern to the machine so that the machine recognizes this pattern. Okay, when we talk about time related data, it is seasonality that we talk about. So when we talk about other things, like say non-time related data, there could be some mining techniques which will tell us there is a pattern. Okay, so how did we arrive at the decision to, if this data is not present, it is hard for us to decide which one to choose and which one not to choose, right? And this is how our descriptive, predictive and prescriptive analytics are all combined together. And one last example that I wanted to touch about from the COVID cases on this predictive prescriptive analytics is this. Okay, so what sort of analytics is this? As soon as you see this, is it descriptive, or it is predictive, or it is prescriptive? On seeing this graph, it is descriptive or predictive or prescriptive. Okay, so you can put your so from the graph, what do you infer? Do you infer this to be predictive or it is prescriptive? So as I said, whatever has been happened in the past, and if you report about it, uh, it is descriptive, and anything that talks about the past or upcoming becomes predictive, and that anything that is used to influence the prediction is your prescriptive, right? So what is this? Okay, graph is not visible. Okay, descriptive. Okay, that's a right answer. It is descriptive, right? So we are talking about how many cases were already there, how many cases have recovered, how many cases are still active. So these are all past happenings. So we are talking about what has already happened, and we are describing about that particular event. And a more detailed event is about this, right? Say for example, we are telling about how many male were impacted, how many females are impacted, what is the impact ratio and all these things. It is a graph which talks about the descriptive part of the data. Okay, and the last slide, what is this then? If my question today is, what is the expected COVID cases in say February 2021? If this is my question, what am I trying to do? Am I asking about descriptive analytics or predictive or prescriptive? You can put your answers in the chat. Okay, the question is this. So you know April, May, June, what was the impact? Now my question is, how many number of cases will come in February 2021? Okay. So, yep, it is all predictive, right? So because we have the past data with us, now the trend is little linear. So based on the linear data, we are trying to predict what is the upcoming wave, right? So how does this happen? So this happens through a machine learning algorithm. It could be a time series algorithm like ARIMA or ARIMAX, and using that we can do the prediction, right? So the gist of all the slides which I've been talking so far is just very introductory to keep you up to speed about what is predictive analytics, what is prescriptive analytics, and what is predictive analytics. This difference is very key because whatever we are going to talk about is going to talk about the same. Okay, now it is quiz time. Okay, so I'm going to open up this one. I know it is a healthcare related one, but I'm going to put a quiz here. And this quiz, we are all going to take it together. And the question is this. Okay, say for example, you are going to a sari shop. Okay, very layman example. You are going to a sari shop, and you are the owner of the. Imagine you are the owner of the shop, and some customer is coming to your shop. Okay, you are the owner of the sari shop. Okay, how will you identify if the customer is an interested customer or a not interested customer? Because there could be people who do window shopping. There could be people who are potential buyers. How will you identify that? Do you think it is identifiable? First question, is it identifiable for you that whether a customer is an interested customer or not? Second thing, if you say it is possible, how will you identify that? That's my question. Okay. Yes, Anand and Pramod, yes. Okay. They said yes, it is predictable. But how will you predict is my question. Okay, if they are regular customer, okay. Okay, can you elaborate that, Praveen? Okay. Range of buying, okay, they may say, they will say, show me that, show me this, and all those things. Okay. Okay, fine. So it is predictable. Okay, it is predictable, and based on when you say historical data, you as an experienced person would know who will buy and who will not buy. Based on their looks, based on the questions they ask itself, you will know whether they will buy or not, right? Let's take this example of Amazon. Okay, in Amazon, how many of you have found this disclaimer, only one stock left? Have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen this one stock left, hurry, buy now, and all these things? Always, right? Do you think it is really true? The next question that I want to ask is it true or false? Does it really mean there is only one stock left? Okay, Panjavanan says false. Okay, I agree. What about others? It's a marketing strategy, yes, of course. Yep. Okay. Now tell me, does it show this only one stock left to everybody or it is only for selected people? Do you think Amazon will show this only one stock left for only selected people or for everybody? Let's see how much you grasp it. Okay, Ananda says for selected. Panjavarnan says all, but I would go with Anand's answer. Okay, for selected people. Okay, maybe. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. So let's go into this, right? I'm going to show you something. So imagine you are in, so I will give you some facts. It is predictable. Okay, so Amazon does not show this to everybody. It shows only to selected customers, and we are going to take a quick round table now. Okay, tell me if this is a phone. Okay, so I showed you this is a phone, and you are a data science person, okay, and you wanted to predict whether a customer visiting the website on this particular page will buy the phone or not buy the phone. Okay, first answer me in the chat, do you think it is predictable or not predictable? So you get all the data, okay, from the website. Okay, whenever a customer comes into the website, you will get the data. Using that data, do you think you can predict whether a customer will buy a phone or not buy a phone? Yes, you can, right? So go to the link now. So go to www.menti.com, okay, from your mobile phones, please. Go to www.menti.com from your browser or from your this one. Use passcode number 9193896. Okay, 9193896. Go to menti.com, www.menti.com, and use the passcode 9193896. Okay, so the question is this: can you predict whether a customer will identify or not? If so, what are the factors? So you will be given three things you can say based on their whatever it is, right? So I will give you an example. I will say age of the customer is one important factor. My father who visits the website even 10 times will not buy it. But if I visit the same page 3 times or 4 times, I may buy it. Okay. So you can 25. What is that? Okay. So mention some factors that will help you identify something like, so factors, when I say factors, you can say their customer would have visited the review page, or something like, say, whether he's a frequent buyer, things like that. What will help you identify if a customer will buy the product or not in an Amazon website? Awesome. Previous purchases. So if he has done a previous purchase, high likely that he may do the second purchase. Let's see. Let's wait for 10 responses and then we will move on. Age, location, of course, that's really awesome. Location is a really nice factor. Frequency to visit the page. Yes, if you love an item, you will visit the page 10 to 20 times. Yes. Past buying history. Awesome. Model. Okay. Maybe if the person is visiting an iPhone, less likely to buy. Okay, that's a good one. Inquiry about the specifications. Maybe he's scrolling down to the specification page. Yes. Valid. That's a very good one. Valid balance. True. I have never thought about it actually. That's a very good point. Valid balance. Okay. Location and area. That's a good one. Maybe people from urban area and rural area will make a difference. City people will buy more price. That's a good one. Okay. How about offer? If it is an offer, the people will rush to buy. Could be. Scrolling the reviews. Awesome. I will give kudos to the person who said that. Scrolling reviews. Yes. See, if you are just window shopping, no one will go and visit the reviews. But if you are serious about buying it, you will scroll till the reviews. Yes. Last sentiment. Yes, of course, could be. Okay. Two more responses and then we'll stop this and we will get into the next topic. Okay, online payment available. That's a good one. Okay, one last response, and with that, I'm going to close this. Rating, cash on delivery, exchange offer, superb, better offers, nice. Thank you guys. It was good. So the reason why I put all these thoughts before getting into the actual readmission concept is when these things are all predictable, okay, readmission is a very big problem in the healthcare industry. Okay, so in the US, what happens is what is readmission is nothing but a patient gets treated in a hospital, he gets admitted, he gets treated in the hospital, and what happens is within a stipulated time, it could be a 15-day readmission or a 30-day readmission, or it could be a 180-day readmission. Within that particular days, 30 days or 180 days, the same patient gets readmitted once again. Okay, so think about this, right? If the patient is being treated fairly enough in a very good manner, this readmissions are less likely to happen. But in the healthcare industry, what is happening is whenever patients are getting admitted, there are like close to 13 to 16 percentage of the customers or the patients are getting readmitted, which means that the insurance companies are getting a big loss because they need to reimburse the money for the first admission as well as for the second admission. Okay, and this also means that the hospital that is not treating the patient up to the mark, or the treatment is not really good. That's the reason the patient gets readmitted once again. Okay, so this is called as readmission. Now tell me, is it possible to predict readmission? Yes or no? Based on patient data, do you think readmission prediction is possible? Just you can use your chat. Okay, Pramod says yes. Okay, so now I want everybody apart from Dr. Deepa Jose, and I see a lot of doctors here, Khalil. Apart from them, I want everybody to assume yourself as a MBBS doctor. Okay, and now I will, in the same Menti link that you had already, I just want you to go to the second question. What do you think can influence a readmission? Say, for example, I will give you a storyline and then you can start giving your answers. This is the second question in the same link. Imagine there is a patient who has been treated well in a hospital, and the hospital has discharged the patient. Within 30 days, the patient has got admitted. Can you predict whether a patient will get readmitted or not during the treatment itself? If yes, what are the factors that will influence a readmission? Say, for example, I will give you an example. Age could be an example. Maybe if the patient is more than 70 years, he's high likely that he may get readmitted. That is an example, right? So do you think we can predict readmission? If so, how do you think, or what are the factors that can influence a readmission? You can use www.menti.com and the code is 91 paramedical reports. Okay, that can help us identify. Okay, way of treatment. I just want to highlight that point. Way of treatment. Yes, age is the one. What sort of disease? Okay. What else? Okay. Based on diagnosis, comorbidities. Okay. Multiple problems together. Okay. What else? Okay. Relapse of disease. Mm-hmm. Think from a hospital perspective, right? What are the mistakes that could happen in a hospital that could cause a patient to get readmitted? There could be some factors with the hospital also. So whatever you have posted here is more about the patient's organs and all those things, which is good. But it can be of multiple reasons, right? Say, for example, it could be of patients related things. It could be hospital related ones. Say for example, I will give you a very good example. Say for example, the patient went or left the hospital against medical advice. You should be admitted in the hospital for 17 days or something, whereas the patient left in the 15th day, so left against medical advice. So he is high likely to get a readmission, right? What else do you think can influence? Incomplete diagnosis, that's a good one. Okay. Bill concession, okay. Not really, actually. I will tell you why. Bill concession, no one will get admitted because of the bill is getting low, right? Maybe I'm misunderstanding that particular point. Okay. Okay, we'll give one more minute and then we'll move on from there. Non-compliance, yes, that's what I meant. That's a good one. Age, non-compliance. In a very simple way, if you see a person, how can you say that the patient will get readmitted? If I ask this question in a very simple language, what will be the reasons? And if you have burnt out your responses, you can again log into menti.com and give the response also. Okay, fine. So those are all good points. Now let me give you a very shocking insight. Language has to do with readmission. Will anyone agree this point? Okay, so Pramod, would you mind explaining that in the chat? Language influences readmission. This is my statement. My hypothesis is I'm saying language will influence readmission. So people have said yes, but can I hear from you why language will influence readmission? Awesome, Pramod. Yes. Say for example, I'm a Tamil patient, and the doctor is a Marathi or a Chinese or a person, right? The doctor will talk in his language, okay, and I will be understanding little of what he says, okay, and I may miss out lot of instructions that the doctor or the healthcare professional is providing me, and I may miss out critical items like say the medications, everything. And trust me, language has influenced 5% of readmission in the US. Between Spanish speaking and English speaking people, 5% of the readmissions were influenced by language. Okay, so it is not a just a fact, but it is the reality. And think about a country like India where we talk about language, right? Say for example, I go to some doctor who's from a different state, and me being and think I know only Tamil and English. Being that particular thing, if the doctor is speaking some other language and he is treating me, it's high likely that I may get readmitted because I may miss out a lot of instructions. Okay, so key factors like this are very important for us. And why do we really need this readmission to be predicted? Is there are two reasons behind it. The US healthcare industry for Medicare and Medicaid, these are all two major government insurance related departments, I would say, or Medicare and Medicaid services are the biggest healthcare insurance by the government, which is aligned with the government norms in the US. And what did they do is they have an organization which is called a CMS, which means Center for Medicare and Medicaid. they said that any patient who is readmitted within 30 days of his admission, then the hospital will be penalized, which means there will be a heavy penalty to the hospital where the patient is getting admitted. Even if the patient is getting admitted to another hospital. Okay, so let me share you this. Okay, so it clearly says that even if the patient is getting admitted in another hospital the second time, they readmitted in the second hospital, the first hospital will be penalized, which means that imagine there is a hospital A which is treating a patient and the patient is discharged, and the patient gets the same problem or another problem and he gets admitted within 30 days in another hospital or the same hospital. Hospital A will be penalized because the patient has been admitted again. When I say penalized, it is for the hospital, the insurance will not pay the full amount. It will say that your penalty is this much because the customer or the patient is getting readmitted again. Okay, so there is a program which is called as HRRP, which is nothing but Hospital Readmission Reduction Program, which was helping the hospitals to reduce the readmissions. So hospitals started to focus on, like, say, how do I really reduce the readmission? Okay, so how can I stop readmission? So here machine learning helped big time. So how it happened is every hospital had digital data about the customer. It had information about the patient's age, the patient's ethnicity, the language, his all his diagnosis reports, everything about the patient was available, and they were able to do a lot of descriptive study on that and understand what are all the key factors that are influencing the readmission of a patient through descriptive analytics. So you get a lot of inferences and diagnostics from your descriptive analytics, and they built a predictive engine. Okay, so the predictive engine is nothing but a machine learning solution. It could be even a deep learning solution, by the way, and it is a simple ML program based out of any classification problem algorithms, like say decision trees or any cart algorithms, by the way. And they were able to predict who are all the customers who would be getting readmitted in the hospital. Okay, so they need historical data, and this historical data is available in each and every hospital that we know. Okay, so for that particular thing, this program HRRP, they created something called as a readmission prediction algorithm. Okay, so this has been used by a lot of, let's see. So whatever you see here is a descriptive analytics, right? So they said that 1 in 5 patients were readmitted within 30 days. Okay, out of which 19% of the people were people who had heart related problems. So the next time, if there are 100 people who are treated for a heart valve problem, 19 people will get readmitted. Okay, and if a person has an amputation related problem, okay, 23 people out of the 100 would get readmitted. Okay, are you following what I'm saying? Same with diagnosis, right? People who have sickle cell anemia and some would say E. coli infection, right? Maybe if people had sickle cell anemia, 32% of the people will get admitted immediately in the next 30 days or so. So these are all some interesting factors that they found. So that what they did is, whenever a person had sickle cell anemia, they were able to easily identify that, okay, now the readmission percentage. Okay, let me ask you this question. Imagine there is a hospital A, okay, and the person was having sickle cell anemia. What is the probability that the person will get readmitted? Very simple question. Seeing the slide, you can answer it. Let me repeat the question. Okay, so you see this slide here. Okay, so it says that 32% of the people who had sickle cell anemia got admitted. Imagine there is a hospital and a patient comes there and they found that this patient is having sickle cell anemia. what is the probability that the patient will get admitted in the next 3 days, readmitted? Okay, Pramod says 20%. Okay. It's 20% or it should be 32%. Okay, I don't know if the question was a little confusing, but it's very easy, right? My descriptive analytics says very simple fact. It says that whenever people had sickle cell anemia, 32% of people whoever had sickle cell anemia got admitted. Now when I diagnose a person, when a person has come for the very first time to meet a doctor, and the doctor diagnoses him with sickle cell anemia, the doctor can clearly predict that okay, this patient is 32% likely to get readmitted. How he is able to say that? Because his descriptive data says that in the past whosoever has sickle cell anemia, 32% of them got readmitted. Very simple as that, right? So same way, whenever you have descriptive study, there are a lot of other factors like whatever I'm showing right now. Imagine a person has two things. He has a heart valve problem and he has a sickle cell anemia problem. So it is a conditional probability, right? You need to combine these two probabilities together, and that will give you a different score altogether. Now, when you think about more than one factor like this, so sickle cell anemia is one factor, heart valve problem is one factor, say amputation is one factor. But think about this, right? There could be n number of reasons that could influence the readmission of a patient. Okay, but you need to combine all those together and predict whether a patient will have a readmission or not. So why do we need to predict whether a patient will have readmission or not? Is once you identify that certain customer is high likely to have a readmission, it is easy for us to educate the customer in a proper way. Okay, so educating them in terms of okay, so educating them in terms of what they need to take, what they need to do, and all these things can be very much focused for the people who are predicted as high likely to get readmitted. Okay, so their pre-discharge assessment also will be too much intense. Okay, and the aftercare will be very intense. So when I say aftercare is intense, it means that calling up the dog, what they do is after the patient has got discharged the very first time, there will be regular follow-ups that they make. They call the patient, they say, have you taken your tablets in the last 7 days properly? Are you taking this tablet in the morning or in the evening? Did you have any other problem? The hospital itself starts to follow up for those customers alone, those patients alone. So these things can be easily be identified, or the cohort of customers or the group of customers or the patients who are actually facing this high readmission index that is given by the machine learning algorithm can be used significantly to target the patients very easily. Okay, so that is the readmission concept behind the algorithm. Now we are going to look into the data that I have, where we are taking all the customers who have patients who have diabetes, and for these diabetes customers we are going to see how they were readmitted or not. Okay, and let me quickly show you this. Yeah, I think I missed one thing. Professor Bhavesh and Pramod, you are right. Yes, it's 1/3 of 30th. I missed the point. Yes, it's not 32% entirely. It's 1/3. You are right. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to share my data points to you guys. Okay. So this is something of original data. So this is not cooked up, or this is not this one. So it is available in the dataworld.com, where you can fetch this data by yourself. So you have the patient ID, and you have the patient number, these two things, and finally you have the race of the patient. My question to you, will a race influence the customer's readmission? Very simple question. Question is, will race influence the customer's readmission? So you have here finally, right, whether they get readmitted or not. Okay, will race influence? Exactly, Pramod. It's more genetic wise, so they are high likely to get readmitted, maybe. Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna do some simple Excel pivot here. Okay. So I have an Excel pivot. Okay, I'm not getting the columns here. Okay. Okay, so before I show the pivot, let me explain the data points here. So these are all the columns that are present. So whether the patient was admitted in emergency, or was it a trauma related case, or it is a newborn, whether it is an urgent case, and all these things is the admission type. So when we do some descriptive study, what we found is people who are admitted as emergency are high likely to get readmitted. Okay, so I thought of showing you that, but the data set is little getting 1 second. Okay, so here it is, right? So we have whether the patient got readmitted or not, yes or no, right? And then based on this, I just wanted to see whether my race has any sort of significance or not. So let me take this. Okay. And based on this, we can create a simple graph. Okay. So based on the graph, what we find here is the Asian category is more likely to get readmitted than African American. Let me zoom this out for you. Okay. So it is, if you look into this particular graph, we see that 83% of the times, right, it is more likely that Asians are high likely to get readmitted than African Americans, and same way they whereas other like say Hispanic and any other people are less likely to get admitted. So there are a lot of missing values, that's why you are getting an other. Okay, So this is one thing. And the readmission type code. Say gender. So you can do the same thing and identify what sort of significance you will get for gender. So if you look into gender, there is no much of a difference between a male and a female. So both are likely to get admitted at the same point, right? If you see here, male is also like say 80, yeah, 89% of the times they are less likely to get readmitted, whereas female also is the same thing. So age, gender is not having an influence on the readmission. Let's talk about weight. Okay. So if you look at the data, what we find is when the weight is lesser, the readmission is lower, right? When the weight is between 0 to 25, the readmissions are lower. Whereas when the weight is little higher, when it is 100 and 100 and above, right? We see that the readmissions are little higher comparatively to what is present. So these are all some descriptive analytics that you can use from the data that you have and understand how much impact is your data having on the readmissions part. Okay, so this is the descriptive part of it. Now I'm going to open my Jupyter notebooks. Okay, so what I have done is I have imported all the packages. So I have imported pandas, I have imported matplotlib, so to do some visualizations, and I have used pandas for my data frame. So the data that is present is from this website. Okay, so this is the website. You can, if you want, I can give you the reference. UCI machine learning repository. So this has 130 US hospitals data. There are close to 1 million records present in this website where we can use the diabetes data to predict whether a patient will get readmitted or not. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go over the highlights considering the time. So I'm importing the data frame. The number of samples present here is close to 1 lakh 766 records are present, and I'm just checking the info if all the columns are loaded properly. So I have all the sample. I'm taking a sample of 5 to check whether all the data is loaded. So I have my data loaded. So there are some data which are present with question marks. So special characters are present. So this special characters is something that we need to rename it. And there is a column called readmitted, which means that which says whether the patient was readmitted greater than 30 days or less than 30 days, or whether he was not readmitted. So our focus is mainly on patients who are readmitted within 30 days of their admission. So I will rename this less than 30 as yes and greater than 30 as no. Okay, so I have grouped by to check this. So these are all the discharge dispositions. So there are few dispositions which means that they are dead. So look at this particular thing, right? If the discharge position is a code is 11, it means that the patient is expired, which means he is no more. So you can remove this. Anyhow, the patient is not going to get readmitted, and this may screw up the data badly. So we can remove those data points. So I'm removing those records which are not there. So I'm creating a new column which is readmitted, and whenever it is less than 30, I'm just inputting that data there. I'm checking the prevalence of the data, and I'm seeing that around 11% is getting re-hospitalized, which means that the data that I have right now is an imbalanced data set. So usually whenever the data is kind of imbalanced, what we do is we try to balance out the data using some techniques like smooth, which is a upsampling and a technique. So you upsample the lower class, which is nothing but less readmitted or um, readmitted records is 11%, so you can smooth it up to 50%. Okay, and I'm doing other EDAs, quickly running through those. Okay, so here's the feature engineering part where I'm replacing all the question marks with the NAN, and these columns are all having blank values, so these can be dropped because whichever is having no missing values, it's fine, we need not treat them. So first what we are doing is we are taking all the categorical data. So when we talk about categorical data, any column which talks about gender, race, the values are all categorical in nature, or it is a grouped label, right? So that group label columns are all taken together and we are checking for missing values. Race alone has 2000 missing values. Hello. Did anyone have a question? Okay. Okay, so what we are doing here is we are keeping the race column as unknown for because it is not ideal to replace this with values like say mode or something, because we are talking about clinical trials and it is not a good practice to replace them with mode or something. So I'm keeping them as unknown. Okay. So now we have all the needed columns here and we are doing a one-hot encoding using getDummies. So one-hot encoding will convert the column. So earlier if you see the data that we have, the race was just present as categorical values within the same column. Whereas what getDummies does is it will pivot the values into columns like this. Okay, so it was all this is one-hot encoding. So we have done the one-hot encoding here. Okay, so let me go into the model splitting, right? So here what we are doing is we are creating the train and test. So what is train and what is test? Training is the amount of data where you have the data and you can use the data to train the model, or you can use the data to teach the model. And test samples is nothing but these samples can be given to see how your model is reacting or doing a prediction based out of the data that you have. Okay, so we are given a 70-15-15 split. Okay, now we are keeping the sampling up. So as I said, it's like some we are trying to do a smooth technique over here. The reason being we didn't have equal balanced data, so we are smoothing the samples after doing the train test split. Okay, so quickly moving into the model selection part. Here we have tried three different models. One is KNN, which is K nearest neighbor, and the next one is logistic regression, and finally we have tried stochastic gradient descent, and the last one tried is the naive Bayes. Okay, so when we tried all these three algorithms, I'll finally go on with the result set here. We were able to get a better AUC curve. So what is AUC curve is nothing but which of these algorithms that we are trying out is able to differentiate the two classes between readmission and non-readmission is your AUC curve. So we see that decision tree is doing better in terms of the trained data, but the bias is higher in the validation data set because there is a difference here in the AUC value. So when you look for consistently higher, it is SGD, which is stochastic gradient descent, which is doing better, and also your gradient boosting is also doing very unbiased in nature because the result sets are the same. Okay, and finally let's go into the model predictions. So we have built a model, and the model gives something called as feature importance. Whatever data that you have been telling now, right? You said age could be a factor, then someone said their gender could be influencing factor, all those things, right? So now when we put this into the algorithm says that number of inpatient, how many times did the patient visit the hospital as a inpatient, that is very highly coming, which means that if there is a patient who has visited the hospital only twice, and whereas another patient is there who is daily coming and visiting the hospital, it is high possible that the patient could do get into a readmission because he's more habitual towards getting readmitted, right? Same way there are other things like say medical specification, payer code, disposition code. All these things are the key influencing factors. Okay. So now after this, if we create, so what I have done is I have done the prediction finally using the algorithms, and this is how your output comes in. Okay, so you give a patient number and you give the attributes like this. So tomorrow if you give the patient's gender, age, weight and everything, we can easily predict what is the probability that this patient will get readmitted. So if you look into this particular example, we say that patient number so and so, row number 1, right? This patient is 40% probable to get readmitted. You look here. Sorry, 58 percentage. Sorry. 58 percentage high likely to get readmitted. Okay. So what will the healthcare professional do now is the hospital will focus on people who are high likely to get readmitted. Okay. So if I had to do here, I'll go ahead and filter whosoever is predicted as a 1. So these are all the people who are predicted as high probable to get readmitted, and I will contact these patients and I will follow regularly, and even during their treatment will be very specialized. Okay, so the instructions to the patients will be very careful. They will double diagnose the patient very clearly, and they will make sure that this patient doesn't get readmitted once again. Okay, so these are all the things that are done. So here we talk something in terms of recall and precision. Here the false positives are fine because a patient who is not supposed to be readmitted, if he is predicted as readmitted, it's okay because that is not at all a problem. So the recall of this particular data is shown here. Okay, so the precision and recall metrics is shown here. Okay, so in the training part, the recall is around 58 percentage, whereas the precision is 65 percentage, which means that we are able to 65% correctly identify the predictions correctly. Okay, and when we create the decile value, we are able to find that the decile lift is 1.5 times higher, which means that when we consider to do this just in random, the model is able to do 1.5 times better than a normal model. Okay, so this is how a machine learning algorithm can be used in the healthcare industry, especially when it comes to readmission. And this can be a very life-changing application if we have enough data in our Indian medical grounds as well. If today we are all going digital, but the greatest challenge in creating this readmission index calculator is nothing but how whenever we create this data, we need to make sure that we are digitally capturing all the data. Okay, and in India, the network of tracking a patient history is really hard because what happens is a patient visits a doctor once, and after that they choose to go to a different doctor the second day or the third day. So there is no easy traceability of the patient, and how the history is being transferred and all those things is technically challenging, but still we have a very long way to go. Okay, and that's pretty much what I had for today. And thank you so much for your time, and I hand it over to Deepa. Ma'am, you're talking on mute, I guess. We see you on screen. Yep.
So it was a really awesome session. I myself enjoyed the session. I had one doubt. What about is there the pre-data processing you have done for that data that you have taken from the website?
No, it's like, so the I have done the pre-processing in the notebook only, ma'am.
Okay.
So yeah, so the data is not a clean data. It is little messed up. It has lot of discrepancies. So that is done in the notebook only. So maybe I
Okay.
can share the code so that you can have a look into the pre-processing steps.
Sure, sure. From the participant side, does anyone has any doubts or any feedback you want to tell to Sir session? You're most welcome.
Hello, Dr. Shelton.
Thank you for calling me doctor, but I'm actually an engineer. Go ahead, please. Yes.
Okay. Shelton, that was a really good session. Myself, Pramod Kumar, I'm working in bioinformatics, especially in drug discovery. And the way you have taken out the information from the participant, that was really excellent. That was a
Thank you.
very participative way of learning and teaching. Thank you very much for your valuable insight over this.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else want to give their valuable feedback? So, in fact, I think you can be one of the best teachers also because the way you explained from the introduction part to the hands-on, that was very clear, even the entire flow of how we have done the project. I hope the participants will make use of this session and try to work on these projects. And as Mr. Dr. Shelton had told us, I'll be sharing whatever Sir will be sharing with me, I'll be forwarding it to all the participants. Please make use of all the sessions that we have arranged for you. And a special thanks to Sir because in the short notice we invited Sir and Sir had immediately accepted our request to be an invited speaker for this STTP. So overall, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks on behalf of our management and on behalf of the teaching faculty from KCG College of Technology for accepting our invite and giving such a wonderful lecture at this session. And we look forward to inviting you in our future sessions also, sir.
It's a great privilege, ma'am. Thank you all. Thank you so much. And I'm giving my email ID Anant in the chat. Um,
So thank you, sir, for that. And on behalf of the participants, I will also ask you whether will you suggest any course that they would, it would be good if they go through or study that course. If anyone want to become an expert in data science, sir.
yeah. So I would ask you guys to follow. Please don't go directly to some institute, pay heavy amount there. I would strongly recommend that you start on yourself. There are a lot of material available on the internet today, and I would give you some channels for you that you can refer back. Especially there is a channel called Joshua Stammer, whom you can follow on YouTube. That will be a very good start to start your machine learning career, because it has a very vast knowledge that even great institutes cannot give. So after that, once you get used to those sort of videos, I can subscribe few more channels as well. Joshua Stammer is one strong this one, and Andrew NJ, you can follow him on YouTube. There are a lot of a lot of materials they put free of cost, and it is purely open source. Please refer to those, and if at all you are interested in doing some courses, please do it as a certified program. There are certifications that you can do through Dell EMC. It is called as DEL EMC. Okay, that is a certification that we have for machine learning. And also you can do certifications from Cloudera, not Coursera, it's Cloudera, and these certifications are valid and globally recognized.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for so much of input, sir. Now over to the participants. See, you will have an exam tomorrow, that is towards the end of the last session. That will be around 3:30, time 3:30 p.m. You will have an MCQ test also, and you need to, all of you need to score 60% marks in order to be eligible for the certification for this particular STTP course. So the criteria is you need to have 80% attendance as well as 60% marks in the test that we conduct tomorrow. All the best to all of you, and thank you once again, sir.
Thanks all.